I always thought heartbreak had a sound. Some slow, mournful string section playing under rain-drenched streets and flickering streetlights. But when Emily told me she wanted a break, there wasn't music, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock above our couch. She didn't cry. She didn't even look sad. Just distant. I just think I need space. Time to work on myself, she said. Her fingers curled around the edge of her coffee mug like it was the only thing grounding her to the moment. I remember blinking at her, as if that would clear the fog forming in my brain. Like this was just a bad dream that would reset when I opened my eyes again. What does that mean, Emily? I asked. Like, a break from us? She nodded, slowly, like she had practiced it. Yeah, just for a while. I stared at her across the small divide of our living room, the place we'd watched movies on Sunday mornings and had drunk wine on the floor during our first months in this apartment. It suddenly felt like neutral ground, like neither of us lived here anymore. I wasn't perfect. God knows I worked too many hours, and maybe I got comfortable, too comfortable. But a break? We'd always talk things out. We were the couple that made it work when others didn't. At least that's what I thought. I don't want to fight, she added, glancing up like she expected me to yell or beg. I didn't do either. Instead, I nodded, jaw clenched so tight I could feel the tension crawl into my ears. Okay, I said, if that's what you need. She looked surprised, almost disappointed. Maybe she thought I'd try harder to stop her. But the truth was, I was blindsided. Paralyzed. I had no idea what the hell was happening. I just wanted to survive the moment. She packed a few bags that night. Not everything. Just enough to make it feel temporary. Toothbrush, yoga gear, a few dresses, and the leather-bound journal she always wrote in but never let me read. I asked where she was going, and she told me she'd crash at her sister Sophie's place for a bit. That part wasn't true. I didn't find that out until later. The first few days were a blur. I went through the motions, woke up, went to work, came home to a half-empty apartment that smelled faintly of her lavender shampoo. I told myself she just needed time. Maybe therapy. Maybe to find herself. Whatever that meant. Sophie came by to check in the third day. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure if she should hug me or apologize. Sophie and I always got along well. She was the grounded one, the calm in Emily's chaos. Where Emily thrived on impulse, Sophie moved with intention. Always thinking, always observing. Her eyes flicked around the apartment, landing on the space where Emily's shoes used to be. So she told you, Sophie said carefully. Yeah, just that she needed a break. Sophie bit her lip. She looked uncomfortable, like she wanted to say more but couldn't. It's probably just a phase, she offered weakly. Yeah, I said. I hope so. But even then, something about Sophie's expression didn't sit right with me. Like she knew something I didn't. Like she wanted to protect me, but also protect her sister. Loyalty split down the middle. After she left, I stood alone in the silence and tried to remember when things had started to shift. There was no obvious moment. No huge fight or betrayal. Just distance. Like watching someone drift out to sea while you're still standing on the shore, screaming their name. It wasn't until I went to grab a hoodie from the closet that I noticed it. One of her gym bags was missing. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she'd taken it with her. But then I remembered something she'd said in passing weeks ago. Something about a new trainer. Ethan. She had been spending a lot of time at the gym lately, more than usual. Long sessions. Late ones. She'd even started wearing new clothes. Tight, flattering workout gear. More makeup. And I'd been so caught up in work that I never questioned it. I trusted her. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. That night, I lay awake thinking about Ethan. The name, the image I built in my mind, the invisible threat I hadn't seen coming. But still, I told myself I was being paranoid. Emily wouldn't do that. Right? Wrong. They say hindsight is 20/20ths. But when you're in it, knee-deep in denial, you miss the signs even when they're glowing like neon in the dark. The first sign was the lingerie. Not just any lingerie, either. Emily had always leaned toward comfort. Bralettes, boy shorts, cotton blends. But now, lacy thongs. Strappy black bras with mesh that left very little to the imagination. I found one tangled in the laundry, something I hadn't seen before, definitely nothing I'd ever taken off her. I stared at it for a long time, trying to remember the last time we'd had sex. 6 weeks? 7? And it wasn't like her libido had died. If anything, she'd been glowing lately. Toned, energetic, constantly smiling at her phone. I chalked it up to the gym, to her self-work. But now it all looked different. Like a puzzle I'd forced together. Only now the pieces were snapping apart. I'd started noticing her gym bag reappearing at odd hours. Before, she'd go in the morning or early evening. Now, she claimed she was working out late, 9 p.m., sometimes later. She'd come back sweaty, flushed, radiant. I used to find that glow sexy. Now it made my stomach tighten. And the phone. God, the phone. She used to leave it charging in the kitchen overnight. Now it was always on her, even in the bathroom. The notifications were silenced, locked behind Face ID. One night while she was in the shower during a quick stop home, it buzzed once on the counter. Just once. I glanced. That was the contact name. No last name. No context. But I didn't need it. I knew who he was. Still, I told myself I needed more than a name and some lace in the laundry. I needed proof. Sophie came by a few days later, under the pretense of dropping off some of Emily's things. She stood in the doorway awkwardly, as if she didn't want to cross the threshold into our broken home. Her eyes scanned the space like it was haunted. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm managing." She lingered for a beat, then walked in and set a bag on the kitchen table. "She asked me to bring over some of her journals," Sophie said. She thought it might help her stay centered. I laughed. I didn't mean to, but it escaped before I could stop it. "Centered," I repeated. "Is that what she calls it?" Sophie looked at me carefully. "Jake, what do you think is really going on?" I met her gaze. "Honestly, I think there's someone else." She didn't flinch, didn't argue, and that silence told me everything. I raised my eyebrows. "You know something?" "I don't know anything for sure," she said quickly. "But I've noticed things." "Like what?" She hesitated, chewing her lip. "There's a trainer at her gym. Ethan. He's kind of known for crossing lines." That name again. "Is she sleeping with him?" I asked. "I don't know," she repeated. "But I saw them. A few days ago. After her class. She was laughing at something he said, and, look, maybe it was innocent. But it didn't feel that way." My jaw tensed. "You didn't think to tell me?" "I didn't know if it was my place," she said, her voice strained. "She's my sister. And I'm your brother-in-law." Her face fell. "I know." The rest of the conversation was short, clipped. She left soon after, promising she'd tell me if she saw anything else. I nodded, but part of me had already started hardening. Not against Sophie, but against the hope that things were still fixable. That hope was a slow poison. The next day, I took the afternoon off work and drove to her gym. I parked across the street and watched through the windows. She was there, purple leggings, sports bra, hair pulled back in a high ponytail. She looked good, really good. And she was smiling, brightly, fully, as Ethan hovered beside her, showing her how to position her arms during some resistance exercise. He touched her lower back. She didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed, that full-bodied laugh I used to think was just for me. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My chest burned, not just with anger, but something more humiliating. That primal male pain of knowing someone else had your woman. That she might be giving him what she'd taken away from you. I didn't go in. I couldn't. That night, I scrolled her Instagram again. She'd started posting more fitness content, smiling selfies at the gym, captions about grinding for growth, hashtags like #StrongNotsery. No sign of Ethan, but he was there in the comments. "Killer session today. You're glowing, Em." I couldn't help myself. I clicked his profile. Ethan_moves. Trainer. Wellness coach. And yeah, shirtless pictures. Too many. Muscles like a damn Greek statue. The kind of guy who probably bench presses his own ego. I hated him instantly. But the hate was easy. It was the grief that followed that wrecked me. Because even if nothing had happened yet, even if they hadn't had sex, I'd already lost something. Her loyalty. Her honesty. Her laughter. And the worst part? I still loved her. I still wanted to believe that she'd come home. That she'd say this was all a mistake. That we'd fix it. But in that moment, watching her smile at him like I didn't exist, I knew. The woman I married had already left. She just hadn't told me yet. I didn't expect Sophie to show up at my apartment that night. It was almost 10 p.m., and I'd just sat down on the couch with a beer I didn't even want. I was tired, tired of thinking, tired of hoping, tired of pretending I wasn't falling apart. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps. Hesitant. Like the person on the other side wasn't sure they should be there. When I opened the door, Sophie stood in the hallway wearing an oversized hoodie and jeans, her hair pulled into a messy knot like she'd thrown everything on in a panic. She wasn't wearing makeup, and her eyes were red, like she'd been crying or trying very hard not to. "Jake," she whispered. "Can I come in?" Something in her voice made my stomach dip. She wasn't here to exchange pleasantries. Something was wrong, worse than I thought. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit right away. She paced, arms wrapped around herself, breathing like she'd run the whole way over. "Do you want water?" I asked. She shook her head, then finally collapsed onto the couch, elbows on her knees. "God, I hate this," she muttered. "I hate this so much." A cold pressure formed in my chest. "Sophie, what happened?" She looked up, and the expression on her face told me the truth before she said a word. "It's Emily," she whispered. "She hasn't been honest with you." I sat across from her, the world narrowing into a tunnel. "Just tell me," I said. "Please." Sophie exhaled sharply, like she was bracing herself for impact. "You deserve to know the truth. All of it. And Emily's not going to tell you because she wants to control the narrative. She wants you to think this separation is about her growth or whatever bullshit she's telling herself." Her voice cracked slightly at the end. I could tell this was tearing at her. "Sophie," I said gently, "what has she done?" She swallowed hard. "She met someone. At the gym. Before she asked for the break." My jaw tightened. I'd suspected, but hearing someone else say it was like getting hit all over again. "It's him, isn't it?" I asked. "Ethan." She nodded. "Yes. And it's been going on longer than you think. I saw them together yesterday. And I saw them last week too. Before she left." She looked away, ashamed. I didn't want to believe it. I tried to tell myself maybe they were just flirting. But today I heard her talking on the phone. I only heard part of it, but it was enough. "What did she say?" My voice came out low, dangerously calm. Sophie wiped her eyes. "She said she wished you'd fought harder. She said the break would make you chase her more. And that if you didn't, she'd know you weren't passionate enough for her anymore. She said she needed to feel wanted." She shook her head. "Jake, she planned this. She planned the break. She planned the distance. And she planned the choice she's pretending to struggle with." I felt my breath leave my body like I'd been punched. Humiliation mixed with heartbreak, a bitter cocktail. "She wanted to test you," Sophie continued softly. "She told me she wanted to see if being with someone else would make her feel alive again. She said you'd gotten stable, predictable, and she wanted intensity. Drama." "Drama," I echoed, stunned. "We built a life together. Since when is stability a flaw?" Sophie's eyes filled again. I told her she was being cruel. I told her she was risking the best man she'd ever had. But she didn't listen. She's blinded by whatever fantasy Ethan is giving her. I sank back against the chair, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Why tonight?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Because I can't let her do this to you anymore. I can't watch her destroy what you two had and pretend it's growth. And I can't pretend she's someone she isn't." Sophie took a shaky breath. "And because you deserve someone who doesn't treat your heart like a game." The words hung between us, heavy and warm and too intimate. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Her breathing was uneven, her cheeks flushed, her eyes full of pity and anger, and something else, something unspoken. She shifted closer. "Jake, I'm so sorry." Her hand came toward mine slowly, cautiously, like she was afraid I might pull away. I didn't. Her fingers brushed mine, tentative at first, then firmer when I didn't move. It wasn't romantic. Not exactly. But it wasn't platonic either. The contact sent a small current up my arm, a reminder that someone still cared whether I broke apart. Her voice softened. "I'm here. Whatever you need. Whatever you decide to do next." I held her hand for a moment longer than I should have, letting the warmth anchor me. Then I pulled back, rubbing my face. "I don't even know where to start." "We start," Sophie said quietly, "by finding out the truth. All of it. And then we go from there." We. Not you. Not I. We. For the first time since Emily walked out, I felt something unfamiliar. Not hope exactly, but direction. Sophie came back the next night. Not because I asked her to. She just showed up, holding a laptop, a grim look on her face, and 2 coffees. Mine was black. Hers was loaded with sugar and milk like always. A small part of me registered the gesture, the familiarity of it. But most of me was still locked in numb survival mode. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Thought maybe we could start digging." We didn't have a plan yet. just a shared understanding that the lies needed to be peeled back, layer by layer. Sophie's presence was calming in a strange way. Even though this whole mess was tied to her sister, she was relentless, focused, like she was hunting something she had to face too. We sat at my kitchen table, screens glowing in the low light of the room. Sophie had brought her tablet and started combing through Emily's public social accounts. I opened my own laptop and began pulling up saved text threads and old photos. Anything that might help us draw a timeline. Here, Sophie said, turning her screen toward me. This is Emily's gym's class schedule. Look at the pattern. I leaned in. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m., she pointed out. That's Ethan's boot camp class. But she told you she was doing solo cardio, right? Right. We stared at the screen for a moment. It wasn't proof of cheating, but it was a crack in the facade. Sophie kept scrolling, cross-referencing Emily's tagged photos, locations, and captions. She's been careful. No pictures with Ethan. But see this? She showed me a boomerang from a few weeks back. Emily in gym gear, toasting a green smoothie with someone cropped mostly out. A large male hand. Tattooed. My heart sank. Zoom in, I said. She did. The tattoo was blurry, but I could make out part of a pattern I recognized from Ethan's social page. The same tribal style ink along his forearm. She's hiding him in plain sight. We both sat back. I didn't know whether to feel vindicated or crushed. Sophie closed the tab. There's more. I remembered Emily used to sync her iCloud account with my old Mac when we were staying at our parents' house last winter. If she hasn't disabled the link. She opened a folder on her desktop. Photos started loading. Tension surged in my chest as we watched thumbnails pop up. Most were innocent, screenshots, food pics, selfies. But then came a burst of recent photos. Emily, sweaty and laughing. Ethan beside her, shirtless, holding a post-workout shake. It was intimate, raw, not posed for social media. They weren't sleeping together in the picture, but they didn't have to be. The way she looked at him, it told me everything. I stood and walked to the sink, gripping the edge like it might stop the room from spinning. Sophie stayed quiet. I thought I had more time, I said, my voice low, to fix things, to make her want me again. But she was already gone. She wanted to be chased, Sophie murmured behind me, but she was running toward someone else. I turned, and for a moment I saw the guilt flicker in her eyes. She wasn't just mad at Emily. She was mourning her too. This wasn't betrayal from a stranger. This was her sister. I'm sorry you're in this, I said. She shook her head. No, don't do that. Don't protect me from her choices. We stood in silence for a while, the tension stretching between us like thread pulled tight. Then Sophie sat up straighter, clearing her throat. We need to get more. If you're going to confront her, or protect yourself legally, you'll need undeniable proof. You mean, catch them together? She nodded slowly. We don't have to go full private investigator. But we can track her gym patterns. Watch her stories. Her location tags. I know her schedule. I can probably get access to some of her texts when she's using the iPad at my parents' house. A pause. And I'm not above snooping if I have to. I looked at her, really looked at her. Sophie had always been the good one. The responsible sibling. Emily was chaos and charm and fire. Sophie was order and quiet strength. But right now, she looked dangerous in a way I hadn't seen before. And I liked it. You want to do this together? I asked. She held my gaze. Yeah, I do. There was something about that moment, the quiet alliance forming in the shadows of Emily's betrayal, that felt intimate in a different way. Not romantic. Not yet. But real. We were in this trench together now. Sophie tapped her nails on the table. I'll send you her gym's trainer rotation. You can check in one day, say you're looking to join. Pretend you want to get fit post-breakup. I smirked. You think I'm fit enough to pass as gym material? She smiled. You're not as broken as you think, Jake. That compliment lingered longer than it should have. I cleared my throat. You should get some rest. It's late. She stood, gathering her things. But as she reached for her keys, her hand brushed mine. We both froze. The touch was electric. Just skin against skin, but it carried something charged. I didn't move. Neither did she. Then, slowly, she pulled her hand back. Good night, she said softly. I watched her walk out the door, and I knew this was far from over. The first undeniable crack came on a Thursday night. Sophie had sent me a message that afternoon. Emily said she's at yoga with a friend tonight. 7 to 9? I'm going to check her location from Mom's iPad. 10 minutes later, she followed up. She's not at the yoga studio. She's near the gym. You want confirmation? This might be it. I didn't respond right away. My pulse was already pounding. That familiar war inside me. The craving for truth versus the fear of actually getting it. But the longer I stared at her message, the more my resolve solidified. I threw on a hoodie and jeans, grabbed my keys, and drove across town to the gym. My stomach churned the entire ride. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping to see. Part of me wanted to catch them. Another part just wanted her to look me in the eye and deny it so I could pretend just a little longer. I parked across the street again, this time hiding deeper in the lot behind a sandwich shop. The gym's glass doors were lit from the inside, the lobby mostly empty, except for two figures. Even from a distance, I knew it was her. Emily. Her hair was tied up, cheeks flushed, standing at the front counter with Ethan. He leaned close, his body language relaxed and too familiar. She laughed, playful and light, then swatted his arm like he'd said something flirty. It was a kind of touch that said this wasn't their first time being that close. Then they walked out together. I ducked lower, my eyes following their every move like I was watching a car crash in slow motion. They didn't even look around. Ethan held the door for her, and she bumped his shoulder playfully as they walked to his car, an obnoxious black sports coupe I'd seen her mention once before. I pulled out my phone and hit record through the cracked window of my car. The quality wasn't great, but it didn't need to be. I got them walking side by side, laughing, smiling, and then he touched her lower back as she slid into the passenger seat. My heart thudded like a war drum. The video kept rolling even after the car disappeared down the street. I sat there, gripping the phone like it might burn through my palm. Sophie called not long after. Well, she asked. They left together. She didn't see me. There was a silence on the line. Then, quietly, I'm so sorry, Jake. I drove back home, the city blurring past me in streaks of light. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow, like whatever hope was left inside me had been scooped out. Sophie came over around 9. I brought wine, she said when I opened the door. And junk food. Seemed like the mood. She kicked off her shoes and followed me into the kitchen. We didn't say much as we poured glasses and sat at the table. I showed her the video. She watched it twice, her lips pressed into a thin, angry line. That's enough, she said. That's real. Not just vibes. Not just suspicions. Yeah. We sat in silence for a while. The only sounds were the hum of the fridge and the soft clink of her wine glass against the table. Then she asked, Are you okay? I shrugged. I don't know. I thought I'd be more furious. But right now, I just feel like I'm watching someone else's life fall apart. Sophie looked down into her glass. I get that. You shouldn't have to be in this, I added. This is your family. She met my eyes. You're my family too, Jake. There was a pause. A long one. I didn't know how to respond to that, because it was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in weeks. And the most dangerous. We moved to the living room eventually, pizza boxes and empty glasses strewn across the coffee table. The mood had shifted. Not lighter, exactly, but warmer. Like the worst of the storm had passed, and now we were sitting in the wreckage, strangely bonded. She leaned back, tucking her feet under her on the couch. So what happens now? I guess. I keep collecting proof. And then I confront her. She nodded, eyes on the blank TV screen. You don't have to do it alone. The room felt tighter suddenly. Her knee was brushing mine. Not an accident. Not anymore. I turned toward her. I appreciate you being here. I wouldn't be anywhere else, she said, her voice soft. And there it was again, that current. That low hum of tension that neither of us dared name, but both of us felt. I didn't touch her. I didn't move. But I saw her swallow hard, her cheeks flush slightly, and her breath hitch as she stood to grab her bag. I should go, she whispered. Sophie. She turned at the door. This isn't about me and you. Not yet. I know that. Jake, I want you to know I'm not going anywhere. I nodded, heart thudding with something I refused to name. She left, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. It started with a shared drive folder. Sophie created it that weekend. She called it Emily Evidence, which felt like something out of a detective novel, but fit far too well. We dumped everything in, screenshots, photos, videos, timestamps, even notes, like we were cataloging the slow death of my marriage. Saturday night, she came over again. I pulled the metadata from her Instagram stories, she said, setting her laptop down. Those hotel tags weren't from the same day she posted them. She's reusing old pictures to throw people off. We sat at my dining table, documents spread out like a war map. Her hair was up in a messy bun again, glasses slipping down her nose. A few strands of hair had fallen loose around her face, and at one point she looked up and caught me staring. "What?" she asked, amused. "Nothing," I muttered. "You're just scary when you're in mission mode." She smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment." We worked for hours, phones buzzing occasionally with updates from Sophie's iPad and a friend of hers who still followed Ethan on social. We traced gym schedules, matched timestamps to texts I remembered, and even dug into Emily's Venmo history. Every bit of it painted the same picture. She wasn't confused. She wasn't working on herself. She was playing me. By the time midnight rolled around, we were both mentally fried. "God," Sophie groaned, stretching her arms overhead, her hoodie rising just enough to show a strip of smooth stomach. "I need a break." "You want another glass of wine?" I asked. She nodded, and I poured. We moved from the table to the couch, sinking into the cushions, surrounded by piles of evidence that felt like they were suffocating me less and less the more we laughed about how absurd it had all become. "I never thought I'd be doing this," she said, swirling the wine in her glass. "Spying on my sister. Helping her husband build a case." "Ex-husband," I corrected quietly. She looked at me. There was a beat, long enough to feel it shift. She set her glass down and leaned back, her eyes scanning my face like she was seeing it differently now. "You look tired," she said. "I am. I don't mean just physically." I let out a breath. "It's been a hell of a month." She nodded slowly. "You've handled it better than I expected." "Is that a compliment?" Her lips curved. "Yes. And no. I think part of me was scared you'd just fall apart. And maybe I was scared I'd fall apart too, watching what Emily did." "You don't have to defend her." "I'm not," she said. "Not anymore." I turned toward her. Our knees were touching again, just like that night before. But this time, neither of us pulled back. "I keep thinking," I said quietly, "that maybe I did something wrong. That I got too comfortable. Stopped being exciting. I stopped chasing her." Sophie shook her head. "Jake." She didn't want to be loved. She wanted to be adored, worshipped. And when that wasn't enough, she wanted to be wanted by someone new. "That doesn't make it hurt less." "No," she said, her voice soft. "It doesn't." There was a silence after that. Heavy, warm. And then she moved. Just a little. A shift in the cushions, her thigh brushing mine. The scent of her, vanilla and red wine, wrapping around me like a slow unraveling. She looked up at me, and I looked back. Our faces were inches apart. I don't know who moved first. Maybe both of us did. But suddenly our foreheads were touching, and her breath was warm against my lips. We hovered there, the tension crackling like electricity in the air. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "I know. This is wrong. I know." But neither of us pulled away. Her hand moved to my chest, fingers lightly resting over my shirt. I felt my heart pounding beneath her touch. "Sophie," I murmured. She closed her eyes, then pulled back, gently like it hurt. "We can't," she said. "Not like this." I nodded, swallowed hard. "You're right." She exhaled shakily and stood, brushing her palms down the front of her jeans. "I should go." "You don't have to," I said, quieter than I meant to. Her eyes softened. "I want to stay. But if I do, we'll cross a line we can't uncross. I don't think we've been on the right side of that line for a while." A faint smile. Sad. Honest. Still, I'd rather do this the right way. I walked her to the door, and just before she stepped out, she turned and looked at me again. "When this is over," she said, "when it's really over, I don't want to pretend there's nothing between us." "There is something?" She didn't answer with words, just reached up and brushed her fingers along my jaw, light, fleeting, and then left. I stood there in the silence for a long time after, the door still half open, the night air cool on my skin. And for the first time since this whole mess began, I felt something unfamiliar. Desire. Not for revenge, not even for closure, but for the possibility of something honest, something real. Sophie's message came just after noon on a quiet Tuesday. "Sophie, Jake, I have something. You need to see this." I was at work, staring blankly at a spreadsheet that suddenly didn't matter anymore. I called her immediately. Her voice was tight, controlled, like she was holding back adrenaline. "A friend of mine from school," she said. Works at the Waverly Hotel. She just sent me a photo. Emily and Ethan checked in together. Just now. Time stopped. Are you sure? I've already seen the photo, she said. I'm looking at it now. It's them. The image came through a few seconds later. A grainy shot, but unmistakable. Emily in a long gray coat, sunglasses, smiling as she stood beside Ethan at the front desk. His hand was resting on the small of her back again, possessive, familiar. That was all I needed. We're going, I said. Jake, I need to see it. For myself. No more guessing. No more almost proof. 10 minutes later, we were in my car, Sophie beside me in the passenger seat, quiet and tense. The Waverly wasn't far, about 20 minutes away in the city, nestled between two upscale restaurants and a yoga studio. The kind of place you go when you want to feel like you're doing something naughty in style. We parked down the street, far enough not to be noticed. You okay? Sophie asked. No. She didn't press. We waited in the car for half an hour, then walked slowly past the hotel entrance. I felt like a kid on the edge of a pool, knowing the water would be freezing but needing to jump in anyway. Emily and Ethan weren't in the lobby, but we didn't need them to be. Sophie's friend had sent more than a photo. She'd sent a room number. Room 412. We lingered outside the elevator, pretending to check our phones. When it opened, we stepped in quickly and hit 4. My heart hammered the entire ride up. What if they see us? I asked, suddenly unsure. Sophie's voice was steady. Then they see us. We walked slowly down the 4th-floor hallway, soft carpet muffling our steps. Room 412 was at the end, just past the ice machine. I hesitated. Sophie didn't. She stepped forward and knocked. 3 quick raps, then immediately pulled me around the corner to hide by the vending machine alcove. We both held our breath. 30 seconds later, the door cracked open. Emily appeared, wearing a robe, hair tousled, looking flushed and annoyed. She peered out, confused, called hello, and then Ethan appeared behind her, shirtless, dragging his hand down her back. I saw red, but Sophie's hand found mine and squeezed tightly. You have what you need, she whispered. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Got their faces. Got their voices. Got them standing together in a hotel room they didn't bother to hide. Emily closed the door. I stood there, my pulse roaring, body rigid with something primal. Let's go, Sophie said. We didn't speak until we got back to the car. My hands were shaking as I set the phone down. The footage was clear. More than clear. Indisputable. I'd wanted the truth. Now I had it. Sophie sat beside me, looking as devastated as I felt. Not because it surprised her, but because seeing it, capturing it, made it real. Her sister had crossed the line and dragged me with her. She was going to come back, I said finally. Pretend she needed more time. Maybe even cry. Apologize. Sophie didn't answer. She was going to come home and lie straight to my face. Still nothing. And then I felt it. Her hand, gently resting on my thigh. I know this hurts, she said softly. I wish I could take it away. I turned to her. Her eyes were full of sympathy and fire. And for a moment, I didn't feel alone. I felt seen. I exhaled, voice shaky. It's done now, isn't it? Yes, she said. It is. We didn't go back to my place right away. We drove in silence for a while, winding through the city streets, neither of us ready to land. But eventually, we pulled into my apartment complex, and I sat with the keys in my hand, staring out at nothing. You should stay tonight, I said. If you want. She hesitated. I mean, just because it's late. And I don't really want to be alone. She nodded. Okay. Inside, the air felt heavier than usual. Everything looked different, even though nothing had changed. Just me. We didn't talk about the video again. We didn't talk about Emily. We made tea and sat on the couch with a blanket and some show neither of us paid attention to. Somewhere between the second and third cup of tea, I leaned back and closed my eyes. Sophie shifted beside me. Her head found my shoulder. I let it stay there. Then her hand slipped into mine. No words, just warmth. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. I felt peace. Or maybe just the closest thing to it since the moment Emily told me we needed a break. And as Sophie curled up next to me under the blanket, I realized something else. I wasn't just grieving the marriage anymore. I was letting it go. I didn't sleep the night after we caught them. Even with Sophie in the other room, curled up under the guest bed duvet she'd unfolded quietly after I insisted. I just stared at the ceiling in the dark, the quiet broken only by the hum of the HVAC and the occasional creak of the walls. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant even, but I didn't. I felt hollow. Betrayal is a strange kind of grief. You don't just mourn the person, you mourn who you thought they were, who you were when you trusted them. It's like watching a movie you've loved your whole life, only to find out the actors were mocking you off screen the entire time. By morning, I couldn't pretend anymore. I was wrecked. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, trying to breathe through the growing weight in my chest. It was like something alive was moving inside me. Rage, sorrow, humiliation, and it didn't care that I was trying to keep it all together. Sophie knocked gently before stepping in, already dressed in one of my old t-shirts and leggings. "Hey," she said softly. I made coffee. I couldn't even speak, just nodded. She walked over slowly, sat beside me, and placed a mug in my hands. I didn't drink it. I just stared at the steam curling upward like a ghost escaping. "I thought I'd be stronger," I finally said. "You are," she replied. I let out a hollow laugh. "Then why do I feel like I'm falling apart?" Sophie didn't speak. She just reached out and rested her hand on my back, warm and steady. It grounded me, even as everything else inside me came undone. "She chose him," I whispered. She looked at what we built, at everything we'd been through, and still, she chose him. "She doesn't even know what she wants," Sophie said gently. "She's chasing validation, not love. That doesn't make it hurt less." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't." I set the coffee down and leaned forward, rubbing my hands over my face. And then, without thinking, I said the one thing I hadn't let myself admit. I don't think I ever meant as much to her as she meant to me. The silence after that was brutal. Not because Sophie didn't respond, but because she couldn't. There was no comfort to offer, no argument to make, just the ugly truth hanging in the air between us. She slid her hand into mine again, and something in that touch broke the last thread holding me together. I turned toward her, eyes burning, and she moved closer without hesitation. We didn't kiss. We didn't speak. But we held each other there, on the edge of everything falling apart, clinging to the only thing that felt real anymore. Her body fit against mine like it had always been meant to. Her fingers traced slow circles on my back, soft and soothing, and before I even realized it, I was leaning into her, my head against her collarbone, breathing in her scent, vanilla, soap, safety. I don't know how long we stayed like that, but at some point we shifted. Her forehead pressed to mine. Our noses brushed. This time, the kiss almost happened. We hovered there, lips barely apart, eyes locked, and I felt every inch of her tremble with the same conflict I felt in myself. I wanted her, not just physically. I wanted her because she was the only one who'd seen me in all of this, the only one who hadn't lied. But she pulled back. Just a fraction. Just enough. "I don't want to be a reaction," she whispered. "You're not. I don't want to be the reason you stop hurting. You're the reason I remember how to feel." She looked at me, and something in her eyes flickered, something raw and scared and deeply honest. "If we do this," she said, "it can't be out of pain. It has to be something we choose." I nodded slowly, heart pounding in my throat. "I'm not ready," I admitted, "but I'm closer now than I was yesterday." That seemed to be enough. We lay back against the pillows, fully clothed, fingers entwined between us like a quiet promise. She didn't push. I didn't reach. But the tension lingered in the silence, pulsing between us like a held breath. That night, we didn't sleep together. But we didn't sleep apart either. And maybe that was the first real step toward something new. Something that wasn't born from betrayal, but from healing. Emily came home on a Sunday afternoon. I knew she would. She'd texted the night before. "Back tomorrow. Want to talk if you're around." No apology. No guilt. Just a casual, almost cheerful tone, like she hadn't detonated the foundation of our marriage. Like she hadn't spent the last month using the word growth to disguise the word affair. Sophie offered to be there, but I told her no. This was something I needed to do on my own. Besides, if Sophie had been in the room when Emily showed up smiling, I wasn't sure one of us would have made it out calm. She arrived with her gym bag slung over one shoulder, sunglasses perched on her head, and a fake exhaustion that didn't quite cover the smug glow beneath it. "Hey," she said, like nothing had happened. I stood in the living room, arms crossed. She looked around like she was checking for signs of disaster. "This place is cleaner than when I left," she said, forcing a laugh. I didn't return it. She dropped the bag by the couch and finally met my eyes. Her smile wavered. What? You want to talk? I said flatly. Yeah. I thought maybe we could reconnect. See where we're at after some space. My jaw clenched. Reconnect. She blinked. I thought the break might help us reset. Didn't it for you? I walked to the coffee table, picked up my phone, and opened the gallery. Without a word, I pressed play on the video. The one Sophie and I had taken outside room 412. Her, Ethan, the robe, the touch. Her voice saying hello as he stepped behind her, shirtless. I didn't even look at her as it played. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Jake, she started, eyes wide. That's not what it looks like. I finally looked at her. Emily, don't insult both of us. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then the switch flipped. You've been spying on me? No, I said. I've been uncovering the truth you refused to give me. Her face twisted. That's a violation of privacy. And you violated a vow. She scoffed, arms crossing. You don't get to act like the victim when you gave up on us. That stopped me cold. Gave up? Yes, she snapped. You stopped trying, Jake. You got boring. Predictable. We stopped having sex. You didn't even notice when I changed. I noticed, I said darkly. I just didn't realize you were changing into someone I wouldn't recognize. She threw her hands up. So what? One mistake, and suddenly I'm a monster? I laughed bitterly. You call it one mistake. I call it weeks of deception. Lies. Manipulation. You're twisting it. No, Emily. You twisted it the day you decided the break was a test. You wanted to see if I'd chase you. And when I didn't, you ran straight into Ethan's arms like it justified everything. Her eyes flicked away, guilt finally cracking through the indignation. But it didn't last. You've always been so safe, Jake. But safe gets boring. You don't know what it's like to feel alive. Yeah, I said. It's a real adrenaline rush watching your wife lie to your face. She flinched. I let the silence hang a moment before adding. And what happens now? You come back, and what? Pretend it was just a detour? Her lips parted, but no words came. Then, from the hallway, another voice spoke. She wasn't planning to tell you at all. We both turned. Sophie stood there. She must have come in through the side entrance. Her face was calm. Her voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through the air like a blade. Emily's expression turned white-hot. You're seriously here right now? I told him the truth, Sophie said. Because you wouldn't. You're unbelievable, Emily snapped. You're my sister. And you're a liar, Sophie shot back. You dragged him through this whole charade while hooking up with your trainer. You used words like healing and space to justify betrayal. Don't stand here and act like you're the victim. Emily's jaw dropped. Oh, I see what this is now. This isn't about me. This is about you. You've always had a thing for Jake. Sophie didn't flinch. And you've always taken everything for granted, including him. The air practically vibrated with tension. You think this makes you better than me? Emily hissed. You think you're going to replace me? No one's replacing anyone, Sophie said. But someone is finally being honest with him. Emily turned to me, eyes wild now. Are you seriously entertaining this? My own sister? I'm finally seeing things clearly, I said. And that scares you more than anything. She stared at me. I saw the moment it clicked, when she realized this wasn't going to end with an apology and a second chance. You don't forgive me, she whispered. No, I said. I don't. She scoffed, grabbed her bag, and stormed toward the door. But just before she left, she turned and spat. You two deserve each other. And then she was gone. The door slammed. Silence. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My hands were shaking. Sophie stepped closer. You okay? She asked softly. No, I said. But I will be. Emily didn't message me for 3 days after the confrontation. Then came the spiral. A string of texts, voicemails, and finally a full-blown email, each one messier than the last. The first few messages tried to claw back dignity. Accusations. Deflection. Then came the guilt plays. Apologies wrapped in blame. Half-baked explanations that felt more like she was convincing herself than me. But the last voicemail was the real reveal. Ethan dumped me. Said he didn't sign up for drama. I guess he just wanted fun. I thought we had something. God, I was so stupid. That made 2 of us. I didn't respond. Not to any of it. The following Monday, I filed for divorce. It wasn't easy. Even when the heart knows it's over, the body still remembers. Your hands still ache at night for the shape of someone who used to fit there. But I wasn't in love with her anymore. I was in love with the version of her I'd made up. And that person didn't exist. Sophie moved in temporarily. At first, it was supposed to be just a few nights. She had boxes of her things still at her parents', and she said it made sense to stay close while I dealt with the legal side of the separation. She cooked dinner a few times, did laundry, sat with me at night on the couch with her feet tucked under her. It started to feel like home, but it wasn't simple. We were both navigating minefields. Some nights we were close, laughing over takeout, brushing hands in the hallway, exchanging soft looks when the silence got too long. Other nights, the guilt hung between us like fog. She was still Emily's sister. I was still the man who used to say, "I do" to someone she'd grown up beside. We slept in separate rooms. Mostly. One night, about 2 weeks after Emily's explosion, Sophie was curled up on the couch, dozing off during some terrible rom-com. I'd sat beside her, sharing a blanket, our legs pressed together, the TV flickering in the dim room. When she stirred awake, she looked at me with soft, sleepy eyes. And then she said it. "I don't want to leave." I didn't ask if she meant the apartment or the moment. I just nodded. That night, she stayed in my bed. Nothing happened, just sleep. Just shared breathing, warmth, comfort. But it meant something. A new line crossed. A quieter one. The next morning, I woke up to find her still there, curled against me, peaceful. It was the first morning in months I didn't wake up with a weight on my chest. We didn't define anything yet. Didn't try to name what we were. That would come later. But one afternoon, I walked in to find her sorting through a drawer in the kitchen, one that used to be Emily's tea drawer. Sophie had cleaned it out, replaced the odd herbal blends with her own favorites. Peppermint, chamomile, cinnamon spice. "What are you doing?" I asked. She smiled, sheepish, taking over. I watched her for a moment. The way she moved through the space like she belonged, like she'd always been part of it. "Stay," I said. She looked up. "Not just for the week. Or the transition. Just stay?" Her smile softened, but I saw the hesitation in her eyes. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" she asked. I stepped closer. "I'm not sure about anything, but I know I don't feel alone when you're here." Sophie moved toward me slowly, her hands finding mine. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "We're going to have to talk about it eventually. I know. About Emily. About what people will think." "I don't care what they think." She searched my face for a moment. "You should. I care about what you think." That made her go still. Then she leaned in and pressed her forehead to mine, just like that night on the couch. A breath passed between us. Then two. And her voice came again, barely above a whisper. "I think we might be something real." We stayed like that, still and quiet, holding each other in the middle of a kitchen that used to feel like someone else's. Eventually, we made dinner. She danced barefoot to some song she loved. I tried to pretend I didn't watch her too much. But she knew. And she smiled every time she caught me. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes I'd hear a song or catch a scent that reminded me of Emily, and the grief would sneak up again, not for her, but for what I lost when I loved her. Sophie never judged. She didn't flinch. She held space for both the healing and the wreckage. And somehow, we kept building. The divorce was finalized in early spring. There was no courtroom drama. No bitter fights over property. Emily signed the papers quietly, through her attorney, without ever requesting a meeting. It was anticlimactic, almost hollow. I think she knew she'd already lost everything she could have clung to. She tried to come back once. It was a Thursday. I opened the front door to find her standing there, hands buried in the pockets of her coat, hair tied up like it always used to be when she was trying to look casual. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but as if she'd shrunk under the weight of her own choices. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't answer. Just stepped aside. She walked into the apartment like it still remembered her, eyes skimming over the kitchen, the living room. She noticed the changes immediately. The tea drawer, the fresh herbs on the counter, the extra pair of shoes near the door. Sophie moved in. She said, more observation than question. She did. Emily turned to me, jaw tight. Was it already happening? Before the break? I laughed, short and humorless. You know it wasn't. But now it is. Yes, I said. Now it is. Her shoulders slumped slightly, but she tried to recover. I thought maybe we'd be able to talk. Reconnect. Try again. After the affair? I asked. After the lies? The manipulation? She swallowed hard. I made mistakes. Mistakes are tripping over your words, I said. You made choices. Silence. A long one. I didn't think you'd ever move on from me, she admitted. And there it was, the truth behind it all. Not love. Not regret. Ego. She had expected to be the center of my orbit, even after she burned the bridge between us. I didn't think I could either, I said. But Sophie made it easier to breathe again. She flinched. I didn't feel cruel saying it. I just felt honest. Emily looked around once more, as if trying to find something of herself still left in the space. There wasn't any. I hope she doesn't hurt you, she said quietly. She won't, I replied, because she knows what it means to stay. That was the last time I saw Emily. She walked out without another word, and the door closed behind her like punctuation. Full stop. End of story. The months that followed weren't perfect, but they were ours. Sophie stayed. Not as a guest. Not as a replacement. But as something new entirely. At first, we took it slow. She kept some boundaries, emotionally, physically. We had dinner together, watched movies, folded laundry on Sundays. She filled the space with little pieces of her books, her music, her laughter. It wasn't like Emily. Not at all. That was the point. I found myself smiling more, laughing over things I used to ignore. Sophie would dance in the kitchen when she thought I wasn't watching. I always was. And late one night, maybe 2 months after the papers were signed, I woke up to find her sliding under the sheets beside me. Not for comfort, but something more. We didn't say anything, just reached for each other. It was slow, intentional. Her hands exploring, my breath catching, every touch both a question and an answer. She kissed me like she meant it, like she chose it. And when we finally let ourselves fall, it didn't feel like guilt or betrayal. It felt like healing. Afterward, she lay with her head on my chest, fingers tracing circles just over my ribs. I never thought it would be you, I said quietly. She smiled against my skin. I always hoped it wouldn't be. That made me laugh. She looked up. I didn't want to be the one who caught you when everything fell apart, she added. But now I can't imagine not being here. I don't want you anywhere else. She kissed me again. Soft. Slow. Sure. And that night, I stopped measuring love by what I'd lost. I started measuring it by what I was building. We took our time with everything else. She told her parents eventually, and while they were shocked, they weren't angry. I think they saw the truth in us. The way we looked at each other. The way we held hands unconsciously when we sat on the couch. The way we didn't flinch when the past came up. We just met it together. One evening, maybe 6 months in, we went for a walk past the gym where it had all started. She laughed. Ironic, isn't it? She said, pointing at the building. That this is where the worst thing Emily ever did became the best thing that ever happened to us. I don't hate her anymore, I said honestly. Sophie looked surprised. Really? I mean, I don't forgive her. But I don't carry it like I used to. It's like she handed me the key to the wrong life, and I finally figured out how to use it for the right one. She squeezed my hand. That's poetic. No, I smiled. It's true. She leaned her head on my shoulder as we kept walking. And in that moment, I knew something simple and whole. Emily's test was supposed to make me chase her, but it pushed me into the arms of someone who never made me run. Someone who stayed.